Dan Dickau for the Bulldog broadcast on the Field of 68 Media Network. Don't have a guest this week. Just wanted to kind of update some of the things that's going on around Gonzaga basketball, some things to keep an eye out, some things to look out for, and things to kind of recap over the previous week. So you look back at the past week, they got a really good win against Loyola Marymount. Loyola Marymount was preseason fourth in the WCC. They've had lots of injuries. They've had a long COVID pause. It was about 2.5 weeks right off the bat in WCC play. So they're just now finally starting to hit their stride. Unfortunately, though, for LMU, you play the number 1 or the number 2 ranked team in the country. It's kind of hard to overcome that lack of consistency with practice as well as game action. So Gonzaga put it on them pretty good. They did have a nice stretch, Loyola Marymount did, as far as start of the game, getting some good looks, and then once Gonzaga settled into their defensive pressure and their rotations, they just kind of, put it on them, just like a lot of Gonzaga games happen to go once they kind of get into the flow of the game. So that was the first game of the week. The second game, University of Portland, the Pilots came in with a unique outlook, a unique approach. They were going to let Gonzaga beat them from the three-point line. And Gonzaga set a McCarthey Athletic Center record with 18 made threes, took 41 of them. And I can't remember, to be honest with you, the last time I can remember a Gonzaga team even taking 33s. Now, I'm sure it's happened either this year or last. But, when you start talking 41 three-point attempts, that's a lot. Gonzaga typically plays possessions, about 80 possessions a game. Which is one of the fastest, if not the fastest pace in the country. I believe Arizona and Gonzaga have been battling it out neck and neck over the past 3 weeks or so in regards to fastest possession. I think in the Pac-12, Arizona's pace, length of possession will go down simply because they're going to come in to some matchups against UCLA, who wants to slow it down, Oregon State, who will play a little slower, Washington State, who will play a little slower. So I think by the end of the year, all things considered, Gonzaga will have played at a faster pace than anybody else in the country. But in regards to, touching on that, if it's an 80 possession game, Gonzaga took 41 threes. If I go back and watch that tape, I would say pretty much every single three they took was a good three. And the right guys are taking them now. And I think everybody's shooting it with confidence and with rhythm. That was one of the concerns that I had made comments on earlier this season in regards to Gonzaga's perimeter shooting on some of the regional broadcasts that Greg Heister and Richard Fox and myself do. I said on a number of occasions, I don't know if they have a knockdown shooter like a Corey Kispert. I think they've got a ton of very good shooters, but I don't think they have one guy that you're going to run a steady dose of wide pin downs for, or single-double floppy actions where you're really trying to spotlight a certain guy coming off to get a three. I think what you have is a lot of very good shooters playing out of concepts and playing with a lot of space. And then you've got a lot of guys that are just making the right decisions. Swing it to the open guy. The open guy, if he likes it, he shoots it. If not, he makes the right decision, whether it's a dribble attack or it's swing it to the next guy. So, the more I watch this team, the less concerned I am with their ability to shoot it from the three-point line, because I think their threes are coming in great ways, ways that are hard to prepare for if you're the defense. Then looking forward to this week's games, you got 2 road games. Gonzaga hasn't been on the road hardly at all this season. I think the only road game they've played as of now was Santa Clara. Gonzaga's other games that have been on the road have been neutral site games. A neutral site against Central Michigan, UCLA, and Duke in Las Vegas, sandwiched around the Christmas break time. Then you have the Texas Tech game, which was down in Phoenix, which was early December, and then the battle in Seattle, which would be considered a semi-neutral home game, but still wasn't a road game. So this is really their first back-to-back road trip, and it'll be interesting to see how they respond. But to touch back on that Texas Tech game, the more you look at that, the better that win is looking. I mean, everybody was like, "Hey, that Texas game is going to be one that's really going to, look great in the selection committee's eyes," and it still will, I think, to a certain extent. But that Texas team with Chris Beard at the helm and all those great transfers, they haven't blended as well as many people thought. They do have a lot of talent, but it depends on how that talent comes together. And I think that's another great thing with how Gonzaga has always looked at the transfer market, whether it's a true transfer, whether it's a grad transfer. It's got to be a fit, and it can't be just a talent ad. It's got to be a skill ad with a culture and character fit. And Gonzaga's hit home runs and grand slams over the last 10 years with that. You look at Roger Bolton doing just that this year. Geno Crandall, Ryan Woolridge, those guys come to mind. They've hit home runs in those areas. And I think Gonzaga will continue to, discern and evaluate that transfer portal and the grad market extremely well, because I think that's something that is very important, but you got to do it the right way. So that's to touch on the Texas Tech game, and that, like I said, it's looking better and better. Tonight, as I record this will obviously release later in the week. The Texas Tech-Texas game is going to be fun to watch. And I think for Gonzaga fans who are watching it, I think you can just watch it not really caring who wins, because I don't think it's going to impact your net or your RPI in any way, shape, or form, because you've beat both teams. What you want to see is the teams that Gonzaga has beaten not slide and not lose, so they can continue to bolster their NCAA tournament net rankings, to get a 1 seed, maybe even get that top overall seed, which right now, last I checked, Auburn's in that spot. Gonzaga is slightly behind, but so if you're a Gonzaga fan, you want Duke to keep winning, and you want Alabama to turn things around. They've been an interesting team ever since they beat Gonzaga. They've had some ups and downs, but they're super talented, and you don't want to face them in March, because if they get hot, they can run off. They can kind of run off an SEC title. They can run off an SEC tournament title, and then they can get hot in the NCAA tournament. And you don't want to match up with them, but you want to see them progress right now, because that's one of the 2 losses that Gonzaga has.
Before we move on to the next topic, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with BetRivers yet, now's the time, because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just 1 playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. With basketball season tipping off, get in on the action by going to betrivers.com today, or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
But back to the 2 upcoming road games this week. USD is much improved. Much improved. They're 6-3 in conference. Marcellus Earlington has done a really nice job of continuing to improve. Joey Calcaterra is still there. They've got a nice transfer, Jace Townsend, from Denver. He scored well over 1,000 points in his time at Denver, averaged about 20 a game a season ago. This year, he's the second leading scorer for the Toreros. He's blended really well. They've got a nice freshman piece, a guard, Wayne McKinney, who's from San Diego, which I think is always important and always helpful. I know in Spokane, Coach Fee doesn't recruit a lot of local kids, and when he does recruit them, they've got to be the right fit, and they've got to be a tremendous player. Anton Watson being obviously the latest to fit that bill. But it's hard to be a hometown kind of player at your local college. And so far, Wayne McKinney's done a nice job in San Diego in that aspect. You would hope that Sam Scholl could keep some of the San Diego guys who fit what he wants there, and they can keep building some things a little bit. But they've played really well. They're going to play a slow it down style. In years past, they've played elbow actions where they'd hit a big on the elbow, and they could maybe scissor cut over the top for a dribble handoff, or they hit the elbow and then they go play split game point to wing, and try to get you to mess up on a coverage. Similar to what USD does, but a little bit different tweaks in the angles of how they set their screens, but very similar in the concept of guys coming together and then you read curl, pop, back cut, pop, straight, and then dive, whatever it might be. So it's kind of a concept-based defense that you have to stay home with. If you're going to switch, you've got to be you got to vocalize it loud and early, and you got to be committed to that switch. But you can't just switch out of you have to switch out of necessity. You can't switch out of because that's what you want to do. Because if you switch out of necessity, or excuse me, if you switch to take things away, you won't give opportunities to the Toreros. So that's going to be a fun one on Thursday, and then Saturday's a big one. Gonzaga's going to BYU, and the Cougars need a win badly. They've lost their last 2 games, buzzer beater essentially at Santa Clara, and then they lost at Pacific of all places. Yes, Pacific, their first game. Their first win in the WCC this year. But that's a big one because BYU, they're still hanging in there tough in the net. They have 3 losses in league, but I think they're 27th in the net as of this recording. And if you're 27th in the net, you're making the NCAA tournament. No fans or buts. But you can't continue to slide. I mean, if you get to that 5-loss mark in the WCC, and your net would be around 38 to 44, you're going to be sweating it out on Selection Sunday. Now, I do think if you're in the top 40 in the net this year in the WCC, I think you're going to make it. I strongly feel that. I think the Pac-12 is a little down. The Mountain West is having a nice year. The WCC is having a nice year. But I think this is going to be a year where you see at least 3 teams from the WCC. I'm really pulling for 4. I would love to see it. But BYU, they can't have any more stumbles, and then when you say that, USF can't have any stumbles either. So it's kind of one of those fine lines right now where if you're BYU and USF the rest of the way out, your only losses can be against Gonzaga, St. Mary's, or each other. That's the bottom line. That's where your losses would have to come if you're still searching for an at-large bid. That being said, if you were able to sneak one out against Gonzaga, that would definitely bolster your chances. But BYU, Alex Barcelo is still playing pretty darn well. Traore, the young freshman, is playing well. Gideon George has had some ups and downs, but he's a nice piece. And Tejon Lucas is playing well. I believe he's second in scoring for BYU. But you go to Provo, you go to the Marriott Center, you're going to have 14,000 people screaming, prepared, ready to give you their best shot as a crowd, bringing the energy. So Gonzaga's got to be ready to go because, they're going to be their second true road game on Thursday against USD, but the crowd in USD is going to be pro Gonzaga. That's just always how it's been. Yeah, it's going to sell out, but you're going to find a lot of Gonzaga fans traveling down, or other Gonzaga fans that live on the West Coast that want to get, to the game in San Diego, and then that really makes that BYU game the first, I would honestly say, the first true road game for Gonzaga, because Santa Clara, limited fans. I believe San Diego will have limited fans too, but a lot of them will be Gonzaga fans. So that BYU game is going to be the first road atmosphere for Hunter Salas, for Nolan Hickman, for Chet Holmgren. So that's going to be really interesting to see how they respond to that. So lots of good things going on with Gonzaga. Lots of excitement. I think they're really battling for that overall 1 seed. And I think the next opportunity to really solidify it is beating BYU this Saturday to keep moving up in the net. Obviously, they are number 1 in KenPom. So for Bulldog broadcast on the Field of 68 Media Network. I'm Dan Dickau. Look to bring you another guest next week as we continue to chat Gonzaga hoops.